I think Martin invited me to talk to you because some of the stuff that we do back home since the dawn of democracy is kind of really about regenerate. It could possibly even be a company motto as to what it is, our raison d'etre, our reason for being. So, Design Indaba is the world's biggest design conference. It sounds completely counterintuitive. It takes place in Africa. It does. And I want to just tell you a little backstory about why we do what we do. You see, there's a great power in convening. There's an immense energy in us all coming together. Conferences are just not talk shops. They're a wonderful opportunity to coalesce energy and to make it a force for good. So, in case you're geographically challenged, but you are Europeans and not Americans, bless them, Martin. And I live at the southern tip of Africa. And almost everything I've done has started at the dawn of democracy, which was about the only time somebody with a dusky hue like me could do something in my country with its previous apartheid past. And it was a heady, euphoric, amazing time. It was the kind of time when, if you were sipping that Kool-Aid of Nelson Mandela, our talismanic leader, you just wanted to be more. You just wanted to do more. You just wanted to contribute towards this amazing pilot project for Africa and for the world. And so we had this beautiful, goosebumpy, emotional time in 1994 when we voted in our first elections. And I've got to tell you, this next quote is not sop to this local audience. It actually is embedded. If you see, I did a talk a few months ago to the European Academy of Design, and I said this: hope is not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense regardless of how it turns out. And there was this thing at the dawn of democracy in our country where we were so infused with hope that I gave up my day job. I was an academic at med school, and I just went in and did the leap of faith into trying to reinvent myself as the country was reinventing itself. So we set up a platform called Interactive Africa, and Interactive Africa is a kind of skunk works. A skunk works is a kind of crazy place where we could try to be a contributor to a socio-economic regeneration and a renewal of South Africa. And it's easier said than done, and we've got up to some really zany projects. And I think if there's a one-word strategy document for the company, it's to change the algebra in South Africa and in Africa. Instead of being about the lowest common denominator, it's about being the highest possible multiple. How to give Africa stretch. How to make us all stretch. So every project that we've tried to do has not been pedestrian, has tried not to be mundane, it's just tried to be stretch. So these are the kind of stretch projects. For example, in 1999, there were more phones in Manhattan than all of Africa. Crazy, crazy statistic. And we thought that if you want to entrench democracy and promote commerce, people need to talk. It's a basic human right. So we did this rally across Africa. We drove from the northern tip to the southern tip. And along the way, we, with a Canadian NGO, gave telephony through telecenters to people who hadn't had telephony before. And it was a massive, massive campaign. And we brought global attention to this digital divide with Africa and invited multinationals to invest in Africa. And of course, we had a fabulous patron-in-chief. In 2002, we project managed a trip to space for the first African in space, which is really fun. And we did this with a South African cosmonaut who went up to the International Space Station. It was particularly cool to put a South African flag on the fuselage of a Soyuz as it blasted off from Baikonur in Kazakhstan. But on the back of it, we launched a platform which still exists in our country. It's called HIP to be Square. HIP2B superscript 2. HIP to be Square. A new formula for success for the 21st century. Last century, it was good enough to be literate. Now you have to be techno-literate. We were promoting math, science, and technology with the youth. And then we were very involved in this campaign to bid for the Soccer World Cup. So the kind of stuff that we've got involved in has been stuff that would give the place stretch and try to really have socioeconomic impact. But my favorite thing, and apropos this particular audience, my favorite project on the planet, the thing that really gives us the best reverb, that's been our university, that's been an amazing font for creativity and to have impact, has been this platform called Design Indaba. Now, ostensibly, when you put people together in a room like this, you think, you're an event organizer, right? Oh, you do conferences, right? I mean, that's the bleeding obvious. And I think it's like what you're going to see and what we're going to share with you is that it's like a kind of an iceberg. The stuff that's above the water is what you see, but most of the action is below. And we do something very simple. We say 3 days of talking, 362 days of doing. We want to smell like armpits, get up in the morning and shovel, and make design and put design to work. So,
ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our
just give you a snapping little vignette of how it looks and what it is like. It's quite a spectacle.
Yes.
Design Indaba.
Some 4,500 people watch it live.
The real source of energy.
As the world gets automated, all our jobs are disappearing. The one thing that's going to be hard to get rid of is the original thinkers.
We deliver blood, vaccines, and other medical supplies. Sisters, mothers, and daughters keeping the lights on. So I'll say the system is pro.
Can you feel its form? Can you feel its weight? Now, what is it?
Geometry was a key feature from the beginning.
How do you translate the movements of the dancer into time?
Using code allows me to create new tools for designers.
My life has changed in many ways. Hearing cover means that I can now wear a song, so I decide what melody I want to wear.
From a young age, I was interested in what made certain spaces comfortable to be in.
You need to try something new, and you will learn to love it.
Design Indaba is the true genuineness of us as people, is that you can come, you can be yourself, express yourself. It allows you to choose how you express yourself. It allows you to choose how you present your work.
You see that walk, you know? You see the walk?
It's amazing, you know, everything you see. But I was really looking forward to what designers from 2 years ago did with the IKEA exhibit, so that was quite exciting to try to see something like that had never happened to us. It's phenomenal.
My highlight was the video call with Virtual Ablo. I am obsessed and I could literally not believe it.
Design Indaba is so important. It really takes people like myself who are really focused on different problems that are here. It gets us to take a step back and see all the amazing work other people are doing, which of course inspires the next thing.
It's like a festival of just creative awesomeness.
Okay, so that gives you context. It's a conference, it's a gas, lots of fun. You're going to make this fun. And we do things differently. And we do things differently in these following ways. I think sometimes design's got a problem right now. There is a bit of a design bubble. Every city has a design week. There's a design conference going on somewhere in the world every single day. And we really have to set ourselves a higher standard as to why we need to put a design conference together. What's it for? So we try to do things in 3 different ways. One is we try to make it performance and spectacle, if we can. And so we invest a lot in terms of that. Secondly, we try to get back to the very simple honesty of making. And we try to make as much as possible. I don't want to be a soapbox activist, standing on there advocating for design, and not actually being gonzo about it and inserting ourselves into it and doing something about. We have to be advocates, but we also have to be exemplars for what it is that we are suggesting to be a great toolkit for the 21st century. So we get back to the simple honesty of making, and we love making. So I'll give you an example. This was a talk, but it had 6 months in the planning. And we worked with a typographer who's deaf in Cape Town. And with his dance movements, we created a typeface. And all the typography around the conference came as a result of us filming him and his movements over a 6-month period and working with these amazing typographers who converted it into a typeface. I mean, that's really, really bonkers to invest 200 hours for a 20-minute talk. By the way, this is a gift to all of you. You can go and help yourself right there for that typeface. You can't arrive empty-handed. You have to give some gifts. So we love making, and we do a whole host of projects, and they tell me I've got 10 minutes, so I'm going to power through the most important aspects. So what we really are is about a crucible for change. And I want to talk about 4 projects that we've done that really, really matter. We're a think tank and a do tank. And I think the fundamental question is this: what's design for? Is design a handmaiden to consumption? Is design just to sell more widgets? Or is design in service of people? What's design for? And what we're wanting to do with design is give it a higher purpose, a more noble purpose for design. Not just to be about consumption, but could design improve the quality of life? And how could it do it not just for the haves, but also for the have-nots? So put higher level questions to design. Can design give dignity? Does design have in it the power to give dignity? And so we did this project in Cape Town. And this is, you've got Thomas Heatherwick speaking here later, and Thomas was also involved in this. Because when you come to talk and you come to do. So nobody just comes and gets a free pass to come and give off hot air. They have to do. So we commissioned a whole bunch of these guys to say, here's our problem. Look at that. We've got the badge of dishonor of being one of the most unequal societies on the planet. We've got the world's worst Gini coefficient, the gap between the rich and the poor. And government has done a real poor, almost cringe-worthy job, embarrassing job of housing the poorest of the poor. And the question is that these poor people who live in these shacks and these families that we met, who had never lived in formal housing their entire lives, that particular family that in the shop, this Mrs. Yonkers out here, they lived in a shack for 20-odd years. And we thought, could we corral the best brains on the planet who hardly get out of bed unless they get a museum commission or something really mega, but ask them to work for the poorest of the poor? Could they design the basic house, the $10,000 US house, which tends to be ground zero for housing, whether you're in Sao Paulo, Mumbai, or Johannesburg or Cape Town? And we commissioned them all, 10 sets of architects from around the world, match them with 10 sets of architects in South Africa, have intellectual transfer, and we realized these particular houses. The interesting thing was the first guy across the post was a South African, no inherent bias. He used the material that was right there, hiding in plain sight, which was the sand. 80% of it, because apartheid had moved these people out to these kind of dune-like circumstance, absolutely non-arable land. But sand was plentiful. So the sand, the families were involved in the build. We taught them how to build. And they filled these Hessian bags into this gorgeous superstructure with very, very traditional building techniques from back home, and built these houses. And that's the architect, Leander Impartial. And a decade ago, it won the inaugural Curry Stone Design Prize, a design humanitarian prize in the US. So like, what's this convention for? Why do we meet? We meet so that we could do things like so. This is what's called the Design Indaba 10 by 10 low-cost housing project. And the reason I think what Leander managed to achieve there, as opposed to maybe some of the other star architects from around the world, is that he understood local conditions. He understood how to bootstrap and leverage local talents, skills, and materials. And maybe some of the suggestions from these star architects were a bit over the top. Lots of concrete, super expensive in our locale. And Alejandro Aravena, who cracked an even better concept for low-cost housing, suggested that, yeah, it's because scarcity is the wonderful antidote to arbitrariness. So the question about design is design just about object? Or is design something else? Could design be a plan? Could design be a flow diagram? What is design? Does design always have to be objectified? So we did this little project called Design ER, Emergency Rescue, and we convened an emergency response to the plight of people in Somalia during the height of the war, and sent out 11 tons worth of food and other provisions in this project called Design ER. It was about how to plan and corral an emergency response. But all the time, the experimentation and what we are saying in the public domain is design is more than what you think it is. And it's very, very important. We've got some terrible statistics back home about violence against women. We have an issue where people live in informal areas and in places like so, and sometimes it's not serviced with basic amenities like lighting. And so we don't need to do an ad campaign for our event. So instead we use our so-called marketing cash to better effect. And in this instance, we worked with a gorgeous NGO. If you watched the Gary Hustwit documentary called Urbanized, it features an outfit in Cape Town called VPUU, Violence Prevention Through Urban Upgrade. They do magical, magical work. And the idea is that you can prevent violence, you can prevent these issues if you actually show some care, display some empathy, and do something to upgrade the lot of the people who live there. So in this instance, it said, well, incidents of violence against women could be diminished rapidly if you put some light. Because when you go to common ablution facilities in the middle of the night, light will help. So the way we did this was called Another Light Up. So we walked with the street artists in Cape Town and some interaction designers, and we put this on the main road leading out of the city, on a massive, massive building that you could not miss. And we created a very, very alternative mural. And the mural was an interactive mural, and fundamentally we linked it to a crowdfunding site. And the mural was a very important piece of communication. Through the mural, we were telling the rest of the people in the city about the plight of the women in this particular part of Cape Town called Monwabisi. And through that, every single time somebody donated, a light went on the mural, and a light went on in the township. And it would have been easy enough for us just to pay for the lights in the township, but that would have defeated the purpose. The biggest part of this was the communication collateral, the ability to have a conversation with the entire city about the plight of women and to really engage people. Participation is a wonderful, wonderful aspect. Can design elevate cultural identity? Sure. That's another role for design. It should be, the thing I'm trying to assert each time is design should be more. And this gentleman will be talking, I think it's today or is it tomorrow? When is Thomas Heatherwick here? Tomorrow. Today. He's en route. He's on a flight right now from London. And I won't steal his thunder, but we knew Thomas before it was fashionable to know him. And back then, he had come to Design Indaba. He had only done one building in his life. And we pointed out this particular building, which was, for most parts of the 20th century, the tallest building in Africa. And we said to Thomas, the people are quite flummoxed, especially the guys who own the waterfront area, as to what to do with this. And we need to come up with some ideas. And that started a 12-year journey. He is much better at being able to tell the story as the primary actor behind this, and he will definitely tell you in his presentation. But this is what resulted. And we were able to, with Thomas, help in the generation of Africa's first museum of contemporary African art, which is one of the world's best grain silo conversions ever. Absolutely desperately gorgeous building. Lovely pictures here from Iwan Barn, and recently voted as like one of the 100 places to visit. This comes from a conference. This comes from a gathering. understand, folks, there's immense power in us meeting like so. So this is what he had to say.
Happened with our involvement without Ravi and the Indaba making that happen. And they got really ambitious with Ravi's help to think about what this could do. A project to give, sorry, I slightly got a little goosebumpy thing myself, to give Africa's first major institution for contemporary African art.
Okay, so he's going to tell you the full story. Can design make memory? And we had a very good friend who passed away recently. He was one of our most famous musicians in Africa. Who knows who this guy is? Does anyone hear of a guy called Hugh Masekela? He's an amazing trumpeter. So he passed away. He used to be a standard fixture at Design Indaba. And then we worked with Sir David Ajay, and we asked the question is that, how can we protect this gentleman's legacy? How can we use design to enhance memory? And with David, we designed a very, very alternative tombstone. And we did this memorial pavilion, which we just launched this year. This was the initial concept, with 4 pieces of granite as places of meditation that you could be quite pensive about, all sourced from 4 different quarries at 4 different parts of Africa, because Hugh Masekela was so Pan-Africanist in his ideals. And this is what we just recently dedicated and built. And most of the gravestones out in this place, which is really Heroes Acre in South Africa, is reasonably kitsch, just granite slabs. And we just wanted to create a meditative place, almost poetic, in a way of celebrating a fallen hero. Last project, and I'm done. Can design enhance democracy? Democracy is a fragile beast. It's really, really tough, and we're just a fledgling, juvenile democracy. Our democracy started in 1994. We're just coming to terms with it. We're like a teenager. We're an adolescent democracy. And what we realize is that democracy very often is under threat. And we're seeing, the rise of populism and other kinds of forces around the world that really start to go to the heart of the democratic ideal. And, you realize that democracy is sometimes a bit of a blunt instrument with regards to elections, because it happens every 5 years or every 4 years. But in between, what gives it its structural integrity? So I'm going to give you a little story. Our mayor phones us and says, hey, we want to honor a guy. We want to honor a very, very important South African. He's feeling poorly. I'm afraid we should really do something quite quickly. And the gentleman is Archbishop Tutu. And we want to do something to honor him. And said, ma'am, what would you like to do? She said, I'd like to do a mural on the side of Civic Center. Will Design Indaba like to pay for it? So I said, ma'am, bless you, but I'm teasing her. She's the mayor. I said to her, but you did a mural when Nelson Mandela passed away. You're now going to do a mural for Archbishop Tutu. What are you? Murals are us? You can do something a bit more creative. And she said, well, I'd like to do a mural. Could you just pay for it? And anyway, she ignored me and she sent the invoice for the mural. I was on my way to Oslo to speak at a conference and to communicate and to talk to the local fraternity in the design world in Oslo. And I asked my hosts, could I meet with Kjetil Thorsen at Snøhetta? And they said, bloody difficult. The guy's so busy. I said, let's just try. And I managed to get an audience with Kjetil. And I said to Kjetil, mate, I've got a proposition for you. You're going to come to talk at Design Indaba because you're the Pope, fantastic, love your work, Opera House, Oslo, MoMA, San Francisco, phenomenal. But you're going to come and share your stories with us, first-hand primary actor accounts, cuts and bruises, the backstory, the anatomy of, that's the way you tell your story. But then beyond that, you're going to work. He says, but I don't have a project. I said, you do now. And I said, we're going to have to dedicate something to this gorgeous man. We're going to have to do something. So on my way here, I thought of an idea. We all affectionately refer to him as the Archbishop Tutu. We just call him the Arch. I said, how about making an arch for Arch? Would that be possible? And by which time, Kjetil, super excited, he's off his chair. He runs over to the whiteboard. He starts to draw things already. He says, damn, I'm in. And, no money. I'm just in. We're going to do this thing. And then we started to talk to him about the Archbishop. This is the St. George's Cathedral. This is the seat of the Anglican diocese. This is where he's based. And it's this amazing place for the political struggle. It was a refuge for all the demonstrators and the protesters because the security police would not dare breach the perimeter of the cathedral. And there was this man, when most of the political leaders were in jail, he was the man who spoke truth to power. Very, very important gentleman in our history. And at about the same time, our kleptomaniac of a president, who's no longer there, had just been cuffed around the ears, which is so important, by the Constitution, by the Constitutional Court, for his overreach. Leaders need barriers and checks and balances. Mercifully, we have a fabulous Constitution. So this was swirling around and happening at the same time in the conceptualization. And major protests were starting to happen out in the streets where we were up to here with this kleptomaniac. It was like, enough already. He must go. And Shettle came up with this beautiful idea together with the South African architectural practice. You see, the cathedral is next to Parliament. It is right next to the oldest avenue in South Africa, the avenue that was built by the Dutch in the 1600s. So you've got church and you've got state, and you're going to straddle the street. The question is, if you're going to dedicate this to Archbishop Tutu, what's the message? What do you do with this very important space? And what do you say? What does Archbishop say to this generation and the generations after? And the message really is, he used the metaphor of the Constitution. The Constitution has 14 chapters. It also has 14 lines in the preamble, we'll discover. So this has 14 arcs of wood, 14 arcs of Siberian larch, 5 stories high. And it starts to say, protect my legacy, protect this Constitution jealously. And as parliamentarians looking down every day must understand that this Constitution is what we need to uphold jealously. So we did this project called the Arch for Arch. We weren't quite sure he was going to see it. He was feeling that poorly. So we quickly rustled up a prototype made with a Croatian boat builder, and we wheeled it onto stage as a finale at a Design Indaba. We sang his favorite hymns, Hallelujah. It was just gorgeous, goosebumpy. He cried, we cried. It was really, really amazing. But along the way, we engaged in a conversation with the entire country across the leading digital platforms as to what the Constitution means to you, and asked for feedback. So this became more than artifact. It became something which became a massive, massive communications platform for us to engage in a conversation nationwide about what democracy means, about what a constitution means. And people started to send in their inputs. We could not live where we wanted to, now we can. What the Constitution means to me as a transgender, intersex woman. And people were voicing their issues. And I'm going to leave you with this video. And we're going to just give you a sense of it. You may not get the accent at the start, but you'll get there.
Design Indaba brought together the award-winning architecture studio Schnoheta and Johannesburg-based architect Thomas Chapman to build a meaningful blend of design, art, and activism. The Arch for Arch is a commissioned project commemorating the life and legacy of one of South Africa's most beloved figures, Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Featuring 14 arching stands of wood, each bearing a quote from one of the 14 lines in the South African Constitution, unveiled at the finale of the Design Indaba Conference 2017, and is proud to be part of this momentous tribute to both our beloved arch and our progressive Constitution.
The idea came forward from a group here. Maybe we should make something that relates to these great people and to the worlds that they built. And of course, Desmond Tutu is a tremendous figure in leading our understanding of a better world. So the theory was that somehow there could be an arch for the arch. And in some way, we hope that we will be able to think about a dream that might happen. Anything can happen here at Indaba, and there's a dream that's possible.
So it did happen.
South Africa's beloved Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu is celebrating his 86th birthday today. The Arch, as he's affectionately known, has been honoured with a monument symbolising his strength and resilience. The striking Arch for Arch monument has been erected between St. George's Cathedral and Parliament in Cape Town.
Archbishop Emeritus Desmond Tutu was joined by Cape Town Mayor Patricia de Lille at a ribbon-cutting ceremony of a monument in his honour.
I felt it's so good to see you all here this afternoon. We're absolutely vibrating from the emotions of the most wonderful birthday ceremony for our beloved Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
To you, Arch, and Mama Leah, happy birthday. It's amazing to celebrate your birthdays and at the same time to celebrate the opening of this incredible arch for the Arch.
We are honoring you for your role in attaining our freedom
and single-handed spiritual contribution.
We thank you for your faithfulness to the struggle of women.
So I really admire you.
Happy birthday, the Arch, from Alan and the U2 group.
It's amazing, now to come in here and see all you beautiful people. And our family want to say a very big thank you to all of you. For we are what we are only because of you. Thank you.
For we are what we are only because of you. So, what is design for, guys? I love Heller's quote. The design community is divided between the merchants and the pastors. The merchants are focused on commerce, the pastors on ethics. And I'm going to just finish off with this because I'm going to be frog marched off the stage and I'm not going to talk about this particular project, but only to say, why do we do this? And we are led by a simple mission, and our mission is ideas are just the most amazing, powerful force. Creativity is the ultimate renewable energy. We can conceive of a better world through creativity. And the nicest thing about all of this in terms of design is that it's this malleable tool. It has a great plasticity. We can do so many things with it. Don't be hidebound by your classifications of an urban planner or an architect or a product designer. Look at the world of design as this wonderful source code and toolkit to reimagine the 21st century. Because as a designer, we can be an optimist, we can be a dreamer, we can be a thinker, a seeker, a researcher, an instigator, a provocateur, a collaborator, a catalyst, a futurist, an influencer, a convener, a connector, an experimenter, a demonstrator, a visualizer, a story maker, a maker, an educator, a change maker, an accelerator, an activist, a reformer, a humanitarian. It's a broad church with many portals. Come in, let's make a better world through creativity. Thank you.